Hello, and welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other. Today, I'm going to be discussing another subject of opinion. And this is something I saw on Facebook that somebody posted about a game that happened between Auburn and Georgia this past weekend. About man and some friends, they had a couple of girls along as well, and how they were mistreated by Georgia fans. They were Auburn fans going to a Georgia game, and I got a little bit of a recap on what this man said happened. He said him and his group went to a bar on a Friday, and they weren't too obvious or anything, but one man wore an Auburn ball cap, and one girl was wearing a blue scarf with orange trim. Well, they were booed several times when they came in the bar, and the guy said he had two drinks thrown at him. The guy with the ball cap had a glass bottle thrown in his direction. Later, he realized he was bleeding. People spit on them, and they were cussed out. The girl was afraid of being assaulted, and she threw away her scarf, and they left. They said her scarf's probably in some dumpster somewhere in that area. But when you throw up, it's bad enough that you spit and curse it, but throwing a bottle, that's criminal activity. Doing something like that, that's very dangerous. The next day, when they figured maybe the next day it wouldn't be so bad. They were at a bar. There were a lot of drunk people, but they went to the football game, and they were spat at constantly by grown men. It's ridiculous. They lost count at least 20 people doing that. Sodas were thrown at them at the stadium. They left early just because they didn't like the way things were going, and they weren't comfortable being in that environment around those fans. And they were hit a few more times in the back of the head when they were walking out. The girls were being called vulgar things throughout the whole game, and I fear they did not go out that night to any place, like any bars or anything. They just stayed at the person that was hosting them. Unbelievable. I mean, it's just a football game. I mean, it's not a war. I mean, but it's awful how people act in that way. I mean, my thought is, I have teams I like. I'm not an Auburn fan. Obviously, my dad was a University of Alabama alumnus, so I mean, I root for University of Alabama. But I mean, if I went to a game, I saw somebody wearing Auburn, headgear or whatever, wear shirts or whatever. I don't. To each their own. Everybody's is a fan of a different team. Nobody's going to like the same team. So I mean, I really don't care. Everybody has their favorites, and well, that's the way it is. It's no reason to be doing stuff like that, especially a guy throwing the ball. I mean, the guy should have been arrested for that one. But I have actually had some incidents that I've been to like over 130 sporting events. I counted the programs that I have. It's over 130. This goes back from 1977. I haven't been to any sporting events since probably about 2007. But anyway, I have had some things happen at sporting events, but nothing like what this man was describing. When I worked at the movie theater at Tyson's Corners, the older man that ran the place during the day, Mr. Whitehouse, and he told me he used to have season tickets for the Redskins when they played at RFK Stadium, and he had given up the season tickets. And I asked him one time what was the cause, and he said, "All right, I'll tell you what happened." He went to a Redskin game. Him and his wife were leaving, and this is probably back in the late 1960s. Somebody threw a full can of beer from the top of the stadium to the parking lot. He said the full can of beer missed his head by a couple of inches, and he's like, he's thought, I could have been killed. And he told his wife, "That's it. We're through. We're not going back." Now I have gone to games where there have been some issues. Nothing like what that man was going through. But we went to Baltimore back in 1980 when the Colts were there, and they were playing the St. Louis Cardinals. Both teams are now in different places. But anyway, the Cardinals beat the Colts, and my brother had a Cardinals stocking cap on, after the game, some guy pulled the cap in my brother's face and said Cardinals suck. My mother yelled at that guy for doing it. Don't be such a poor sport. They can't win all the time. The guy said, well, I hope they lose next week. I mean, it's terrible. My brother's a kid and probably about 10 years old, and they do that. Went to another game back in probably 1988 where Maryland was hosting Clemson. For a while, Maryland was winning the game, and Clemson had a better football team. They caught up, and then there was this one guy who was just being a total jerk the whole time. And finally, he left, and a bunch of people were cheering when he left the stadium. I have actually been to a couple of football games in Georgia, not University of Georgia, not Athens, but I have been to a couple of Atlanta Falcons games. I went in 1988 when they played the New Orleans Saints, and I basically wasn't rooting for either team, and I was just being quiet. Finally, some guy says to me, "You can cheer for whoever you want to cheer for." I tell him, "I'm actually don't care who wins this football game, to tell you the truth. I wasn't fans of either one of the teams." And the next year we went again when the Falcons were playing the Redskins, and it seemed the Falcons had a terrible football team back in '89. During those years, and it seemed like there were more Redskin fans there than Falcon fans. Remember right? That was when the Redskins had a good football team. And there was another game I went to at University of Maryland where they were playing West Virginia, and some Maryland fan ran onto the field and charged at a West Virginia player, and I guess the West Virginia player didn't know what the guy was going to do, and I think smacked from what I remember, I think he smacked the guy in the forehead and knocked him out. And then they put the guy on the stretcher that was knocked out. Then he came to and started to run onto the field again. Then they subdued him again and tied him onto the stretcher and took him off. That was another thing I saw at a game. When I worked at Giant on Sundays, we could during the football season we could wear the jersey of the team of our favorite team. So I would wear the Ravens jersey every Sunday I worked, and I got comments mainly from Steeler fans that year the Ravens were having a terrible year. So I mean, I got laughed at by a lot of Pittsburgh Steeler fans, and I'm not a fan of I'm definitely not a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's like asking a Redskin fan if they like the Dallas Cowboys. It's just those two just don't mix. But anyway, the worst comment I got from anybody at that store from wearing the Ravens jersey was from a Cleveland Browns fan. Of course, the Ravens used to be in Cleveland, used to be the Cleveland Browns. I mean, there is a lot of animosity about the Browns being pulled out of Cleveland, which rightly so. I can understand the people not being happy about it. But then again, I wasn't happy about the Colts being pulled out of Baltimore back in the '80s either. The way the owner just did it overnight. Nobody knew anything about it. Just was offices were empty the next morning and moving vans were headed for Indianapolis. But I know one person that said he went to a Redskin game when they were playing the Dallas Cowboys, and he was wearing a Cowboys hat. And this guy's pretty tall himself. This other guy was even taller than him. Knocked his hat off. So he's like, you jerk. Actually used a worse word. And he said the guy picked him up and threw him on the ground. So after when he got him got back together, he jumped up and smacked the guy real hard in the jaw. So the guy was holding his jaw, and he said his friend pulled him away. He said, which was probably good because he said he probably would have gotten killed. But he said his wife did not want him going back to those games after that. And last time I went to a Redskin game at that FedEx Field, I will not go back to that place. I refuse. Some fan ran into me with a soda and spilled soda on me and didn't say sorry or excuse me or anything, and that didn't go over. I got into it with him about that, telling me he should have said excuse me, and he used some profanity with me, and we got into a little bit of an argument. And I was like, that's it. I'm not going back to that stadium again. But these are just football games. They're supposed to be fun. It's like I said. The other teams. The people that play on these teams are people like us. They're not our enemies. They're fellow Americans, fellow men that are playing football. So I mean, and I can understand, being upset if your team's losing. I don't like to see the Ravens lose to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I go to a Ravens game. I'm not gonna bother somebody that's wearing a Pittsburgh Steeler uniform. It probably wouldn't be a smart thing to do in the first place, but it's actually not a smart thing to approach anybody. You don't know what, who you're approaching, what kind of person this is. This could be a martial arts expert. This could be an ex-marine. You don't know what you're approaching. Plus, it's downright wrong to be doing stuff like that. I've gotten to the point where I don't even like. I like watching football. I used to sometimes go to local high school games just to watch some football. I don't even like going to those because some of these parents act like idiots about their son yelling and their son doing wrong or yelling at some other kid on the field. I mean, come on, most of these players that are on the high school team are not going to be doing this professionally. They're doing it for fun. And most of those, even the best high school football team, most of the players are not going to get on the good college teams, and most of the players from like Florida State or whoever wins that national championship are not going to make it into the NFL. It's just a select few out of various teams. Some of the best quarterbacks didn't come from teams that were ranked number one. And so anyway, sports are supposed to be fun, but it really sucks when somebody goes through an experience like that. I myself, just as a precautionary measure, if I was going to go to a game in Pittsburgh, I probably wouldn't wear a Ravens jersey just because it's kind of knowing what how people are. I mean, and which is wrong. I mean, there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to, but it makes me not want to do it, and it actually makes me not want to go to these games with the way people act. I noticed I didn't mention baseball or basketball or hockey, but I don't remember ever having any issues at any of those types of games. It's mainly just been football games. You got a lot of people that are drunk and everything, and it's sad, but I feel bad for those people who went to watch their team play and had to go through all that. But I'm sure, unfortunately, it happens quite a bit. You got a lot of drunk people at the games, and well, anyway, I just wanted to put in my 2 cents worth about it. And like I say, you go to a football game, go to have a good time. Don't harass other people that like other teams. Respect the fact that everybody has a team that they like, and we're all people, and that's what makes the world go round. And as always, thanks for watching.